This is A Course in Miracles, Manual for Teachers, Part 10. How is judgment relinquished? Judgment, like other devices by which the world of illusions is maintained, is totally misunderstood by the world. It is actually confused with wisdom and substitutes for truth. As the world uses the term, an individual is capable of good and bad judgment, and his education aims at strengthening the former and minimizing the latter. There is, however, considerable confusion about what these categories mean. What is good judgment to one is bad judgment for another. Further, even the same person classifies the same action as showing good judgment at one time and bad judgment at another time. Nor can any consistent criteria for determining what these categories are be really taught. At any time, the student may disagree with what his would-be teacher says about them, and the teacher himself may well be inconsistent in what he believes. Good judgment in these terms does not mean anything. No more does bad. It is necessary for the teacher of God to realize, not that he should not judge, but that he cannot. In giving up judgment, he is merely giving up what he did not have. He gives up an illusion, or better, he has an illusion of giving up. He has actually merely become more honest. Recognizing that judgment was always impossible for him, he no longer attempts it. This is no sacrifice. On the contrary, he puts himself in a position where judgment through him rather than by him can occur. And this judgment is neither good nor bad. It is the only judgment there is, and it is only one. God's Son is guiltless, and sin does not exist. The aim of our curriculum, unlike the goal of the world's learning, is the recognition that judgment in the usual sense is impossible. This is not an opinion, but a fact. In order to judge anything rightly, one would have to be fully aware of an inconceivably wide range of things, past, present, and to come. One would have to recognize in advance all the effects of his judgments on everyone and everything involved in them in any way. And one would have to be certain that there is no distortion in his perception, so that his judgment would be wholly fair to everyone on whom it rests now and in the future. Who is in a position to do this? Who, except in grandiose fantasies, would claim this for himself? Remember how many times you thought you knew all the facts you needed for judgment and how wrong you were? Is there anyone who has not had this experience? Would you know how many times you merely thought you were right without ever realizing you were wrong? Why would you choose such an arbitrary basis for decision-making? Wisdom is not judgment. It is the relinquishment of judgment. Make then but one more judgment. It is this: there is someone with you whose judgment is perfect. He does know all the facts, past, present, and to come. He does know all the effects of his judgment on everyone and everything involved in any way. And he is wholly fair to everyone, for there is no distortion in his perception. Therefore, lay judgment down, not with regret, but with a sigh of gratitude. Now are you free of a burden so great that you could merely stagger and fall down beneath it. And it was all illusion, nothing more. Now can the teacher of God rise up unburdened and walk lightly on. Yet it is not only this that is his benefit. His sense of care is gone, for he has none. He has given it away, along with judgment. He gave himself to him, whose judgment he has chosen now to trust instead of his own. Now he makes no mistakes. His guide is sure. And where he came to judge, he comes to bless. Where now he laughs, he used to come to weep. It is not difficult to relinquish judgment, but it is difficult indeed to try to keep it. The teacher of God lays it down happily the instant he recognizes its cost. All of the ugliness he sees about him is its outcome. All of the pain he looks upon is its result. All of the loneliness and sense of loss, of passing time and growing hopelessness, of sickening despair and fear of death, all these have come of it. And now he knows that these things need not be. Not one is true. For he has given up their cause, and they which never were but the effects of his mistaken choice have fallen from him. Teacher of God, this step will bring you peace. Can it be difficult to want but this? How is judgment relinquished? Judgment is actually confused with wisdom and substitutes for truth. What is good judgment to one is bad judgment to another. That just shows that there's no objectivity, and whether we deem something good or bad, it just completely depends on our perspective and our set of circumstances and so much information, which is always changing anyways. And it even says that even the same person could say the same action as good at one point in time and bad at another point in time. So it is necessary for the teacher of God to realize not that he should not judge, but that he cannot. Like we might think that we're judging, and that's helpful and that's useful, but ultimately we can't know. One of the things that used to plague me was about the topic of indecision. And I actually have a whole podcast episode about decision making, which I can link to at the bottom of this video. And basically I went through all these different ways of trying to make decisions, but ultimately the making decision was based on my judgment. And I struggled so much with trying to make decisions because I couldn't figure out what was the best option. I knew that I couldn't judge it myself, but I didn't know how. I didn't know that it actually could be so easy to ask. And so in that process between recognizing that I didn't know how to judge and knowing how to just ask, I went through all these different ways of trying to figure out how to make decisions, which included using a pendulum for decision making. I had a phase of flipping coins. I had a thing where I would write my options down on pieces of paper and see what would come up from that. But ultimately, I was so happy when I found the truth, which is that we don't know. We can't judge. And I just felt a huge sense of relief because that allowed me to give up the thing that I felt the most stress about. And now that I've allowed myself to practice enough, not making decisions by myself, meaning always asking for help to make decisions, then life is just so different. It's just a big relief. I'm so grateful for that. Recognizing that judgment was always impossible, he no longer attempts it. This is no sacrifice. And that's what I mean, is it didn't feel like a sacrifice, it felt like a relief. And then judgment can occur through him rather than by him. And it says here that this judgment is neither good nor bad. It is the only judgment there is, and it is only one. God's Son is guiltless, and sin does not exist. So, whatever you're holding on to, whatever you're feeling guilty about, you can forgive it. You can let go of it. You're guiltless. Wisdom is not judgment. It is the relinquishment of judgment. When I do my healing work with theta healing or any modality that I use, for me, it's about constantly asking and not judging what the person is coming to me for, what their experience has been. I don't judge. And through it, I've been shown things that I wouldn't have been able to see otherwise. And the healing works because I ask, because I know that I can't judge at all. And And it says, now are you free of a burden so great that you could merely stagger and fall down beneath it, and it was all illusion. It is not difficult to relinquish judgment, but it is difficult indeed to try to keep it. And yeah, I also have my moments where I forget and where I feel like, oh, I'm really struggling deciding what to do or judging somebody or something. And I've done it enough that I can recognize what it feels like when I'm holding on to judgment. And it doesn't feel good. It feels like pain. In any way, shape, or form that we hold judgment and we try to keep it in our system, in our minds, it shows up as pain, physical or emotional. The sooner that we can give up our own judgment and open ourselves to God more, the pain goes away. Thank you. That's all for now.